Hello, welcome back to part 3 of the time of the end. Let's pray. Father in heaven, we thank you now that, Lord, you've blessed us so far. And I pray, Lord, that you'll be with us now at the conclusion of this series. That, Lord, you'll fill our minds, our hearts with an urgency. That, Lord, you'll give us a desire to study your word, to be diligent students of the Bible. That, Father, will heed your counsel, be obedient to your commandments. And that, Lord, will be faithful to the end. It is our prayer in the name of Jesus. Amen. I just want to draw a couple of parallels. First of all, pagan Rome had intelligence and arms with the papacy. It conquered 3 territories: Egypt, Syria, and Judea. Papal Rome had intelligence and arms. 3 horns, 3 territories, the Heruli, Vandals, and Ostrogoths, had to be removed. And Papal Rome revived also had intelligence and arms with America. And 3 territories: the King of the South, atheism; the glorious land, United States; and Egypt, the world, has to be removed for this power to take world dominion. And how did they all have intelligence and arms? Pagan Rome used the arms of other nations with its allies. It had intelligence with its allies. Papal Rome had intelligence with the armies of Rome. It used the armies of Rome as its arms. And Papal Rome revived using the intelligence and the arms of the United States of America. And notice how each time there's intelligence and arms, and that 3 territories have to be removed. That is why the glorious land has to be a territory. It cannot be the nation of Israel, it cannot be Palestine, because in prophecy they no longer play a part. It cannot be the Seventh-day Adventist Church because it is not a territory, and it cannot be the Protestants throughout the world because they too are not a territory. It has to be a territory. Removal of the daily. In pagan Rome, various forms of pagan religions were overcome by absorption. So pagan Rome is known by we call it pagan Rome because it was the forefront nation that pushed and promulgated paganism. Whenever it would embrace or conquer another nation, it would take the gods of that nation and embrace it as part of their own religion. So it would take its pagan forms of other religions and absorb it. This is how pagan Rome would kind of symbolically remove the daily. Papal Rome, paganism changed to papalism. And Papal Rome revived. Remember the scenes similar? So somehow the daily has to be removed and the transgression of desolation put into place. This, I think, is more removal of church and state. The heart of Protestantism is the removal of church and state. And it allows apostate Protestantism to reflect papalism. When this wall of separation of church and state is removed, then and only then can the papacy be revived. Daniel 11:31. Transition of paganism to papalism. Pagan Rome achieved 4 things. The armies stands up for the papacy. It pollutes the sanctuary, removes the daily, which is paganism, and sets up papacy as king of the earth. Therefore, scenes similar to this is to be repeated. Therefore, the modern armies of Rome has to do the same thing. Verses 40 to 41, again we have transition of Protestantism back to papalism. Image to the beast, control of religions by papacy. America achieves 4 things. The armies stand up for the papacy. They did that by aiding the papacy in the destruction or the removal of the Berlin Wall and the collapse of the USSR. It removes the separation of church and state. USA first, then the world. This is the polluting of the sanctuary. This is what makes America strong. It's the separation of the church and state. And America also allows the pollution of the churches through ecumenicalism and the renouncing of the Protestant truth, which is the daily. It is Protestantism, American Protestantism, that is resisting the papacy having world dominion. When this is removed, the papacy will have world dominion. And fourthly, it sets up the papacy as king of the earth. So here we see a direct repetition of history that will be repeated from verses 30 to 31 to verses 40 to 41. Daniel 11:42. He shall stretch forth his hands also upon the countries, and the land of Egypt shall not escape. In 1 Samuel 26:9, and David said to Abishai, destroy him not, for who can stretch forth his hand against the Lord's anointed and be guiltless? Stretch forth his hand means to destroy. Hand is power, oppressive. In Micah chapter 4 verse 10, be in pain and labour to bring forth, O daughter of Zion, like a woman in travail. For now shalt thou go forth out of the city, and thou shalt dwell in the field, and thou shalt go even to Babylon. There shalt thou be delivered. There the Lord shall redeem thee from the hand of thine enemies. Oppressive enactments. Satan will excite indignation against a humble minority who conscientiously refuse to accept popular customs and traditions. Men of position and reputation will join with the lawless and the vile to take counsel against the people of God. Wealth, genius, education will combine to cover them with contempt. Persecuting rulers, ministers and church members will conspire against them. With voice and pen, by boasts, threats and ridicule, they will seek to overthrow their faith. By false representations and angry appeals, they will stir up the passions of the people. Not having a thus saith the Scriptures to bring against the advocates of the Bible Sabbath, they will resort to oppressive enactments to supply the lack. To secure popularity and patronage, legislators will yield to the demand for a Sunday law. 5 Testimonies, page 450. Join hands with popery is tyranny. Sunday observance owes its existence as a so-called Christian institution to the mystery of iniquity, and its enforcement will be a virtual recognition of the principles which are the very cornerstone of Romanism. When our nation shall so abjure the principles of its government as to enact a Sunday law, Protestantism will in this act join hands with popery. It will be nothing else than giving life to the tyranny which has long been eagerly watching this opportunity to spring again into active despotism. 5 Testimonies, page 712. The Sunday law oppresses God's people. The Sunday party is strengthening itself in its false claims, and this will mean oppression to those who determine to keep the Sabbath of the Lord. Manuscript 99, 1908. In the very time in which we live, the Lord has called his people and has given them a message to bear. He has called them to expose the wickedness of the man of sin, who has made the Sunday law a distinctive power, who has thought to change times and laws and to oppress the people of God, who stand firmly to honor him by keeping the only true Sabbath, the Sabbath of creation, as holy unto the Lord. Testimony to Ministers, page 118.